Hey LeGrand Alive, this is Coffee with Will, brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Grand Ron Hospital, See Bright Dentistry, and anything2digital.com. And I'm here today with Heather Rekow, who is a longtime friend and also a writer extraordinaire here in LeGrand. She is self-published and she publishes fantasy fiction based around spiritual themes. So thank you so much for joining me here today.
Well, thank you.
Heather, been trying to get you on the show for quite some time now, and we finally did it. So now we're here. Now, what do we talk about? How about you? How about we talk about you? Tell me a little bit about yourself, how you came to LeGrand, and how you got started writing.
Well, I was born and raised here,
Okay.
and I've always loved stories. Ever since I was a kid, there was this very big box I have at home of little stories that I put together as a kid, just stapled papers together and illustrated them. But it was only when I was 12 when I was like, I'm going to just start writing, because I couldn't find a book that I wanted to read.
Which is so interesting to me. You for the longest time did not like reading.
No, I didn't.
Why didn't you as an author, how can you not like reading?
I love the stories, but then the process of taking each word, and that word means this, and forming a sentence, I don't know why, but as a kid, in my head, it was like confusing and difficult. And I was like, I'm just gonna watch the movie, which now I'm like, don't ever do that. So,
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
You ruin everything.
Mm-hmm. But so when I was 12 and couldn't find anything to read, I was like, I'm gonna just write it. I don't care anymore. So I just grabbed a notebook and started writing some dorky fantasy thing. And at the time, it was the most epic thing ever. But now it's like, it's cute. And so,
Which always begs the question then, when you look back at your work, being a writer myself, you look back at your work 5 years down the road, and cute is a very apt word for how you always look back on your previous work. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so when you were 12 and you started writing, and that has continued through high school and on into your adult life, right?
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about, Heather has some books for us here today, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about them very briefly. So the first one we're going to talk about is her first novel, which is, what's the title of it?
The Day the Devil Smiled.
So did you want to show the camera? You can show that one right over there.
This book I started writing it when I was 13. I rewrote it during high school, and it's about what the angels and demons were doing when Jesus was killed. It's like a paranormal based on history, very spiritual, and I've been told by a lot of people it's much more intense than I intended it to be. On accident.
Accident. It is very intense. I have actually read this one, and it kind of has it's about sort of that spiritual layer that in the novel exists beneath the fabric of the reality that we see in the context of Jesus Christ's crucifixion, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And so those spiritual themes, so that kind of brings me into my question, and we'll talk a little bit about your other books too in the context of this. You like to write spiritual fiction that is very overtly Christian. Now, a lot of authors choose to do things in a more subtle way, just because they're both individuals that I know personally, and also some famous writers like C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien. Yet you've chosen to put it more overtly. Why did you decide to do that? Why did you decide to make your books very overtly Christian and spiritual?
Well, when I started to notice that I love writing and I want to pursue it as my passion, I was talking with God about it and just realizing that nothing's meaningful unless He's in it, and I didn't want to water Him down. So there's just so many aspects of Christianity that you can weave into fantasy that I just didn't want to miss anything. And I guess I did it more blatantly than I thought, but that's okay. It worked out pretty well.
Well, I think your new novels are a little bit less blatant.
Yeah.
So really quick, we're going to show a quick trailer that actually I was part of producing for one of Heather's most recent trilogies called Shattered Lives, Hearts of Glass. And we'll come back and chat about that when we get back.
There you are, my lady. I found her. You can't keep on running off like that. It isn't safe.
You can't wander off.
Must we travel through here?
Yes. It's the only way. But come now.
How will we be safe? Swords can't protect us against dark magic.
I will protect you. Besides, spellbinders are old wives' tales, that's all.
So that was Shattered Lives. Tell me a little bit about this trilogy and what it is, and you're not finished with it yet, correct? So tell me a little bit about it and where you're at with it.
Well, first of all, it started as a trilogy, and how art goes, it just built and built and built on itself. So
it escalates.
Yes. So right now, I have no idea how many books that will be in this series.
Oh, really? Huh. That's news to me. I did not know that.
So Hearts of Glass series, it's set in medieval fantasy. Like I said, Christianity, to me, has a lot of fantasy, like, relating aspects. And that's always my favorite genre. So I wanted to present the truths that I learned about Christianity in a entertaining, exciting, adventure, romantic type of a fantasy story with characters who have their heart broken and they go to God or the wizard, as he is in my book. And you see the characters who are restored when they go to God or who crumble and fall apart. The characters change quite a bit through the series. There isn't a definitive villain or a hero because in reality, people change all the time, and you can't just be stationary, and you can't always be a hero or always be a villain. So I just wanted to take what I've learned and share it with people, but just in a fun way.
Absolutely. So why fantasy? Why not science fiction? Because you're not alone in that. There's been a lot of very, very prominent Christian writers who have written fantasy. C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, as I mentioned earlier, also George MacDonald. Countless numbers of people who have seen a similar vehicle, fantasy, for telling stories about spiritual truths like you. So why fantasy for you?
I like swords better than guns. I just the whole castles and swords and knights it relates more to me than spaceships and all that kind of thing. And also, I'm not really a science-minded person, and science fiction deals a lot with that. So I've tried to write that before, but it just doesn't click as well then as fantasy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now that being said, you write all of these spiritual books and you self-publish them. And I have admitted to you already, and I will admit to you on camera, I have a little bit of a bias against self-publishing. I have a little bit of that snob in me that considers it to be cheating a little bit, kind of going around the peer review system.
Right.
But it seems to be the way of the future that a lot of people are going to get their novels published. So why did you choose to go self-publishing and do it that route as opposed to going through a publisher and trying to essentially go that route?
Well, when I first published The Day the Devil Smiled, it was actually through a type of publishing house. And I didn't care for it. It was very expensive, and everyone was not from America, and that makes me uneasy, and they just would call about promotions that I was 17 at the time, and I didn't really know what to think about it. So most of the time it was just throwing my money out there, hoping it does something. And I didn't really want to do that. And so when I learned about self-publishing, I was like, I can do it myself. It's cheaper, and it goes, the type that I went straight onto Amazon. And I'm very, I'm a control freak when it comes to my books. Like like I didn't like giving it to someone else to deal with it. Like with designing the cover, I gave them the longest, hugest description of like, this has to be directly like this in this angle, and just now having control over every aspect with self-publishing, it makes me feel more comfortable, and it can be cheating in a way if you don't know what you're doing, because like anybody can self-publish, which means people who aren't good at book covers make bad book covers and like, look at my book, and it looks really bad.
Yes.
Or they don't edit it properly. So you can be a wannabe and
It's kind of like
publish.
YouTube, and
Yeah.
you click that button and it's a roll of the dice. You are going to get great stuff and you are going to get absolute crap.
Yeah. So to me, self-publishing, it depends on the author if it's cheating or not, because some of them, they think they're all that, and not to be disrespectful, they're just not. They think that just because they can write, that they should just be able to publish, and that's not the case. There's a lot of people that goes into publishing a book. I don't design book covers well, so I give that to somebody else, and I have control over it, but I've given up that
Aspect.
yeah, because I've tried and not anymore.
So it's about knowing what things you're good
Yeah.
at and giving away the
Right.
things that you're not good at, which is an excellent, strategy of just living life.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting to me that it makes it for you. It makes it more about the individual's prowess as an author, and it actually kind of takes it more into the reader to go out there and choose which authors, because they don't have a publisher to vet the authors before it gets to them.
And it isn't cheating in the sense of if you know what you're doing, because if you know what you're doing and you have a good book cover and you have several editors and you're doing it right and you get it self-published, it's a lot of work, because there isn't a publishing house promoting it for you who know what they're doing and have marketing degrees and have like a team for you. It's just me. And I work full-time at a hardware store. What do I know about marketing? And it's just, if you are successful with self-publishing, then I have a lot of respect for that person, because they did it. It's kind of rising above the stereotypical self-publishing books.
Wow, very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me, Heather. This has been awesome. Anything else you want to add about when is your next book coming out? If that's an answer that you can give. I know how the artistic process works, and that's not always a definite thing.
Well, I can say that it's being edited, so in a few months. I don't know when. And while it's being edited, the next one's being written. So they are coming out.
Cool.
But yes.
And those books can be found here in town, in La Grande, in the Grand Ronde Valley. Where at?
They can be found at a grocery outlet, and people can contact me. Or you can just go onto Amazon and type in my name, and it'll just all pop up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me,
Thank you for
Heather.
inviting
And
me.
thank you, La Grande Alive, for tuning in to Coffee with Will. This Coffee with Will was brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Grand Ronde Hospital, anything2digital.com, and See Bright Dentistry. Please like and share this video so we can get the word out, and be sure to tune in to lagrandealive.tv for more local content.